Church. Here are a few announcements for you today. We're gearing up for our biggest outreach of the year. Sweet Street is on October 31st. We only have about 4 more weeks to get ready for our big event. We would love to have your help, and we really need candy. Contact Angie at the FCC office if you can help. This week is fall break. That means we're not going to be having our weekly Wednesday Bible studies or any of our school-related programs like preschool, the before and after school care, and the Rock. All of those will be closed this week. Tomorrow night, Forever Young is going to meet at 6 o'clock in the Fellowship Hall. Our pitch-in supper will be followed by a program at 7 p.m. Alan Leeds is going to be the guest speaker, and he's going to be talking about emergency preparedness. Also, our seniors are going to be taking a trip to the family reunion at the Freetown Church of Christ on Thursday of this week. We're planning to leave at 8 in the morning and we'll return around 4. Please sign up in the foyer this morning if you're planning to go. We're in the final stages before our Operation Christmas Child Packing Party on November 6th. We still need about 100 washcloths and bars of soap. Please put these items in the little red wagon by the elevator. Also, anyone wanting to donate money to cover the cost of shipping the boxes can also see Tom or Diane Sarver for more information. It's getting closer to basketball season. If you're interested in playing on one of the FCC basketball teams, please sign up in the foyer. Games start on November 8th. We're now taking registrations for Crafty Saturday for anyone wanting to be a vendor. Last year, we filled up both the Fellowship Hall and the children's area. Cost is only $20 for booth space. Please contact the church office or go online to the church website to get a registration form. There are even more upcoming events listed in your bulletin. And don't forget that we keep our church website, Facebook page, and Twitter filled with the latest and greatest happenings here at First Christian Church. That's it for our announcements. Thanks for being here today. Have a great week.
her daughter were eating one day, and Julie noticed that her little girl wasn't breathing. So with stealth-like maneuvering, Julie pulled her from her high chair and retrieved the goldfish cracker from her throat. For the first 11 months of the child's life, she has known nothing but gentleness from her mother. But that day's crisis called for swift motion. Sometimes the Lord treats us the same way. He rescues us from danger, yet we see it as the most painful event of our lives. Have you ever been broken down and cried until there was no more tears? Why? Have you ever wondered why this tragedy is happening? I have. Or have you ever questioned whether God really cares about your circumstances? I have as well. I look back on my life and I see moments that were very devastating. It was only later that I discovered that they were actually life-giving. God was rescuing me. But at the time, it was hard to see that. The trials you face today are not too big for God to handle. As a matter of fact, being the loving parent that He is, He may be rescuing you from harm. So believe in Him, trust in Him, and love in Him, whatever your circumstances may be. Someday you will look back at this time and see that He was there all along. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this time in my life and when things were so bad that I questioned God's love for me and everything. I just wondered why. So in my childhood, I was very dependent on my parents, like many of us were. They took care of my everyday needs, let alone make me feel better when I feel bad, and they were always there for me. Many times we ask kids who their hero is, and every single time it's Superman, or Batman, or Wonder Woman. I want to tell you about my parents. They were my heroes. My dad was such a hard worker and a huge supporter of mine no matter what I did. He taught me to never give up and to work hard. And as far as my mom, well, we'll just say that I was a mama's boy. She was my rock, and she was my comfort. Whenever I was going through a rough time, she always knew what to say just to make me smile. And no matter what, everything I did, I wanted to make my mother happy and proud. As you can see, my parents meant the world to me. But regardless of how wonderful my parents were, childhood was not one of the greatest. I experienced things that no child should ever have to experience. And as a third grader, and when you're the youngest sibling, you look up to your older siblings. And I looked up to my older brother. And that may seem crazy to you if you know him, but I did when I was younger. I wanted to do the things he was doing. I wanted to act like him, but not fully understanding the things he did. I remember opening the back door when the parents were asleep, letting him and friends in, bringing drugs into our house. Why did I do that? Because I wanted him to accept me and to be cool. I witnessed a gang initiation in my bedroom. And because of these activities that my brother did, he actually was enrolled into the Jennings Villa. And at the time, it was a program for troubled teens. And he was constantly moving in and out because of his behavior and drug-related activities that he was doing. Like I said, I also have a sister, and at the age of 15, she became pregnant. Our family was shocked and wasn't really sure what we were going to do because we lived in a small trailer, and there was already 5 people in this small trailer, let alone a newborn with all the newborn things, crib, all one thing I will say about my parents is that they had unconditional love for all of our kids, for all of the kids. Even though my siblings and myself constantly broke my parents' heart and lost their trust, they were always there to love us, no matter what. Because if I think about it, I don't know if I could do that, letting my son bring drugs into my house and everything they put me through, and then continually letting them in the house and loving them with open arms. As I said before, my childhood was not the best, but it really didn't seem like that to me because it was my normal, everyday life. So what I want to do is I want to fast forward to when I was 15, which was my freshman year in high school. Many of you know my mother was diagnosed early that year with lung cancer. And in May, she lost a battle with cancer and passed away. The family was devastated by the news and wasn't sure what we were going to do. As many of you would understand, it took a huge toll on my father. He was typically a very strong person and kept his emotions to himself. But you could just tell by his body. He lost a lot of weight, and he didn't adjust well. He took up to drinking alcohol more than he already did. And I remember countless nights where I would physically have to hold my father back from trying to leave after an evening of doing nothing but drinking. I don't say this to put him down because I loved him and I looked up to him more than anybody. But just 3 short months later, my father had an accident at work. Nobody really knew exactly what happened, but he fell and hit his head on the concrete floor and had to go to the hospital for it. Many hours later, the doctors came out and explained to us exactly what happened and that my father had a brain aneurysm, which is bleeding of the brain. Not really knowing exactly how serious this was, obviously, bleeding of the brain is pretty serious, but everybody was so optimistic about it that we really didn't get too out of hand with it. But 3 days later, and being in the hospital, we got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying that my father passed away. So as a 15-year-old in 3 short months, I lost my heroes. I didn't know how to feel, or I didn't even know how I was going to function. I didn't have a place to stay, and trust me, none of the kids were going back to the empty trailer. Like I said before, the first few nights I cried until there were no more cries left, or any more tears left. And all I wanted to do was blame God for it all. Why would He do something like this to me? So my sophomore year in high school, I became pretty numb to about everything. I didn't want to participate in any sports because I couldn't stand being on the football field, not seeing my dad walk along the fence cheering me on. I couldn't stand playing basketball and not being able to go home and my mom say, "Shane, you did a really great job tonight. I'm so proud of you." To have your biggest fan and your biggest supporter taken away was extremely hard for me to adjust. And the activities that I once loved, I didn't want to do anymore. I felt alone, lost, and scared. But in James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, it reads, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I also want to skip down to verse 12. It says, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life God has promised to those who love him." So I also want to tell you a story that I found in my wife's devotional. Don't judge me, but I promise you it'll make a point. my favorite book? I agreed, and once committed, I stuck with it until the end, in spite of wanting to quit reading multiple times. But by the end of the first chapter, I realized it wasn't going to be an easy read. The story was set in the Middle Ages, and it had graphic descriptions of things I didn't want to know about. Skimming through the uncomfortable spots, I kept reading. Thankfully, the book ended well. Because if it didn't end well, I would have been upset that I wasted that much time on a book. But I would have been frustrated if I quit before finishing, and here's why. If I had quit reading at pages 252, the story would have seemed hopeless. I might have thought that the villains won, or the hero and heroine would not have been reconnected. If I had quit reading at chapter 5, I would have the impression that hatred and revenge are unavoidable. I had to keep reading to get to the good parts. Our lives are a little bit like this. As Christians, we will have a happy ending in heaven with God. But not every page or every chapter in our story will be happy. Today may be page 452 for me, and on that page there may be conflict and tension. My chapter 4 may have been the tragedies of my parents, but in spite of the hard parts, the author of my story has a purpose for every page and every chapter of my life. Today, I consider my life a grand story. God will triumph. The victory will be sweeter because of the struggle. But today is not the story. Today is just page 452. So I will press on, trusting in a loving and creative author. You see, I already know the ending of my story. Living happily ever after with God in heaven. As you can tell, today I have gotten past my chapter 4, and because of that, I am a better person. And I couldn't have done it without many people here in this church at First Christian. When things were going bad, you guys were here. There's multiple dinners that I've had because of you guys. Cared enough for me and my family that we could maybe one day have happiness. But right now, I want to have the musicians come forward, and I want to offer this time of invitation. If you are going through a trial right now, you can come up here and I will pray with you, and I will talk to you. But I want you to remember, it's not the end of your story. If you want to become part of the church family, you can do that at this time as well. Or if you want to make sure that your story ends happily ever after, you can come up here and have that chance to get baptized. I will tell you what, through every struggle, every trial in your life, nothing's sweeter than knowing that somebody's there right next to you every single step of the way. So right now I ask that we all please stand during this time of invitation.